Welcome back, wannabes and creators, to another episode of The Business of Art, the podcast that demystifies business for artists. Today on the show, we have James Haick, publisher of Jamestown Publishing and creator of Solar Flare, the new comic book from Scout Comics. And this is a little bit of a weird episode. Honestly, we started the pre-interview and kind of never stopped. It kind of rolled into an actual conversation where, honestly, James mostly interviewed me. I don't know how he switched that around. But we did talk about his publishing company, his comics, how to succeed at conventions, and a whole bunch of other stuff. This is a very long episode. It ended up going an hour and a half, and then it went over 2 hours once we started talking after the interview was over. But there's a whole lot of value here. If you've ever wondered about my con experience, how to succeed at conventions, James is a road warrior. He goes to 20 cons a year, and he's been to them all over the country, from Salt Lake City to Dallas to Florida to North Carolina and everywhere in between. Before we get on to the show, I want to remind you that I have a Kickstarter toolkit, which you can get at thebusinessofart.us/Kickstarter toolkit. It's completely free. It's everything you need to know to create, launch, and fund your Kickstarter campaign based on interviews, podcasts, and videos that I've created over the past couple of years. So head on over to thebusinessofart.us/Kickstarter toolkit to check it out today. There's no sign-up required. It is all just completely free information. With that being said, let's get on with the show. How was your holiday?
It's been great. I got conventions flu. I went to a convention in mid-December, and I hadn't been to one since September. I got married in October, so it was like my first convention. Of course, I got convention flu that seemed to last the entire holiday.
Yeah,
so,
that sounds terrible.
It was brutal, man. And then the convention wasn't very good. And it's funny, I was listening to your podcast about December conventions, and I was like, shit, I wish I would have heard that before I signed up.
Well, you never know, man. So
I was using logic, like, hey, there hasn't been a convention out here. It was good over the summer. It's close to Christmas. But then on the final day, I found out they didn't nearly have the celebrities or the comic guests that they did over the summer. But they were charging a little higher, like it was $42 when you figured in tax, per person, for a person just to get in the door. And it was like, good, that's why. That was one thing that I have to look forward to in the future is the actual cost of conventions to the individual. Because some of these cons are nickel and diming the guests, and they have nothing left to spend.
Yeah, so generally there are too many conventions in the world.
Yep.
So, what happened a few years ago was everyone saw that conventions were starting to make money, so they started adding tons of cons. Now, the interesting thing is there are some good new cons that came up, and there were some bad old cons. So, I feel like there's gonna be an equilibrium in the next year or two where the old shitty cons that used to be terrible, like Wizard World for the most part, they're gonna go away because the people now have an option to go to a better convention.
Yep.
And then all of the people that are in it just to make a quick buck are gonna go away too, and you're gonna have relatively good conventions, relatively well spaced out. But so many cons popped up in the last few years, and they have, even if they had good intentions, they're just shitty because they have no idea how to fucking run a business.
Yep. That's perfect. I mean, to say it, a lot of them, just getting, I'm sure you've experienced, just for them to, the whole application system to apply is just, most of the conventions, even the bigger ones, like Emerald City and Chicago and stuff, it's I don't know. It reminds me of, I don't know if you know any background about me, but I'm a stockbroker by day, and I run my own financial practice down here in Florida. And a lot of the big companies like Merrill Lynch and Morgan Stanley, they won't even allow you, like if you're a customer and you have under $500,000 with them, householded, meaning like if you have a husband, wife, kids, whatever, that they won't give you a individual broker. They'll send you to a call center in New Jersey. And I look at it, a lot of these conventions are doing the same damn thing, where they get elitist to these people who are really quality artists and quality creators, and they're saying, sorry, you just don't cut it. And then these creators are going to remember, because a lot of them are going to become the new, Jim Lees and the new Scott Schneiders of the world. And they're going to remember them getting slighted by these big conventions. And I just think it's poorly run. I really do. It needs, and I understand there's only so many slots for so many people, but they should do definitely a better job of communicating that to the people,
I mean, so as someone who applies to these shows and generally gets into these shows, I have been turned away by some shows, and I'm just like, well, look, man, if 50,000 people apply for 500 spots, like, what are you gonna do? Like, I know a lot of people. I know like Reed Pop ones, they tend to try and like rotate the people out every 3 years. So I've had people that got in for a few years to like C2E2 and didn't get in this year. Like, I get that, because like you want to have a different 500 people come into your fucking artist alley, so it's not the same people you see every year. I mean, I honestly have no problem with those big shows doing whatever the fuck they want, because, like, I make money at those shows. So, like, if I go to Emerald City, I will make a few $1,000s. But it's these shows, like, there's a show by me, which I won't name, which charges $300 for a table, and I maybe make $700 the whole weekend. As opposed to WonderCon, which I do, I pay the same for a table and make close to $3,000.
Yeah, that's.
So I went to them and I made this case. I said, your table costs are too high. They are too high, because here is what happens. People that are at your convention are talking and saying this is not worth the price. What happens is I was like, what happens when you build a convention? How you build a convention is pretty simple. Like, you get a bunch of people to buy tables for cheap, and then you make money, and then you slowly build that amount of money up until it's equilibrium and everyone is happy. What's happening with, and then those small artists, what happens is the people that are exhibiting talk to the new people who then buy the tables, and then those people who have the tables go up and buy the exhibitor booths. And then the people at the exhibitor booths get to bigger and bigger booths. Like, that's how you grow a convention. But what's happening at a lot of these shows is, they're charging $300 for a table, and everyone's going, look, I mean, there's nothing else going on this weekend, so, like, you should do it, but, like, don't expect to make any money at it. Yeah. And it's like, so now less people are going to do the next show because, they're either going to not do a show because they weren't even making $300, or they're going to tell other people to not do a show also. So now less people are going to do that show. The amount of people at the show is going to go down. The quality of the people at the tables is going to go down. And you're going to see the same people over and over and over and over and over and over again. And they do this con twice a year. So they're asking $600 to basically for 7,000 to 10,000 people to come through the door over the course of a weekend. And they don't even have big guests.
Yeah, yep, that sounds exactly like the people who just ran the con that I went to. And they did very, very well because they were charging, the con itself. But little do they know, or little do they care, just like you said in your example, the people are talking. There were some vendors who spent $600 for exhibitors even. Like, people are selling, stuffed animals and posters or shirts that barely made like a couple $100. And, they got all excited because they made so much money, and they are doing another show, I believe, in April. And it's like, it's going to be funny when they look at that, because a lot of these vendors, it's going to take a while for it to catch up to them, but it will catch up.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. Look, it's not going to. What happens is it goes steadily down, and then it's like a nosedive. One con, you're just going to wake up and you're going to have no fucking exhibitors, or you're going to have you will have had the same exhibitors for 3 years and less attendees. And so I said, look, you can literally do this completely cost neutral to you. instead of offering an 8-foot table for $300, offer a 6-foot table for $200.
Yep.
So this is literally revenue neutral
Good
for you.
idea.
You have 30,
Yep.
you have the space. I was like, I redesigned. I went through it. I said, you can fit 50% more exhibitors in your space using the same amount of tables.
You showed this to what was their response? You actually did that for convention people?
Yeah, this convention by me, and they just were like, we're not gonna go forward with this idea. And I was like,
Wow.
what? I was like, not only that, but you get 50% more people in the room to bring in more people to the convention. It's win-win-win. And the ridiculous part is they were using 6-foot tables. They were just adding additional space to the table. So like they would be using they gave a 6-foot and then 2 more feet. And I was like, I don't understand what is going on here. Like they had 15 feet between rows instead of like 10. They had 8-foot tables instead of 6 feet. Like they had like 15 feet between, behind the tables. They had like 15 feet between the two artists. And I was like, what is going on here? Like, what are you doing? Like, you could cut 10 feet here, add 2 more rows of tables, make these 6 feet, and probably make more money. Why aren't you doing this?
So I take it you're not going to do them anymore.
Well, it's a local show to me. I'm going to do it.
But it's right around that.
It's like literally in my town. But like, so I'll spend 2, and I'm going to split it 3 ways. Because the one thing they don't care about is how many times you split the tables. So like, I was like, fuck it then. I'll just split it fucking 3 ways because I don't need more than 3 feet of space.
Mm-hmm.
If I can find 2 more people, that's like $100 a person. All right, that's worth it. Plus, I do a lot of panels there and a lot of like shit there. It was the first show I ever went to, so I have a little bit of nostalgia for that show.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
yeah, that was one thing that I was noticing, just doing my research on you, was that you do a lot of panels, and that's something that I kind of put into my business plan going forward this year. I'd love to start doing it. I was trying to do something, create like a panel where, because again, my background being finance, kind of somehow like integrating the 2 businesses together some sort of way, like helping different artists and vendors and also individuals, if they wanted to come, kind of help them explain about taxes and, retirement and what they should do and how much they should put, just give them a little tip. So that was something that I was brainstorming. When did you start to start doing panels? Did you just kind of call them up and say, hey, or did someone email you and you just started and then all of a sudden they started asking you at various panels? How did that work?
So my buddy 3 years ago told me, if you're not doing panels at shows, you're a sucker. The number one way, and he was self-publishing at the time. He went on to work to get his self-published book a deal with Wordfire Press, which is Kevin J. Anderson's company, and now he's writing at Random House some Power Rangers books. And he said, so I said, well, you must know something. I don't know something because I was not making very much at the time. And he said the way to stand out at a show is to do a panel, because while you have less people in the room, the people that are there are dedicating an hour of their life to you. So,
makes sense.
So it's much more likely that they are going to buy something from your table.
That's it's interesting too. Is like that's in my brokerage career when I first started. That was one of the things that they said was the best way of getting new clients is to do classes or workshops at your local community college or high school, and because again, just like what you said, they're devoting time to you. It's a up close kind of personal.
Yeah, information is ubiquitous. The problem is deciphering the information that is there and being trusted. So there are 6 buying triggers that the main buying triggers that people use. Scarcity, authority, commitment, I'm sure you've heard of these before. Social
Oh
proof.
yeah.
So by being in a panel, you use all 6 of them because you're using the con's authority and building your own. The social proof of the con being there and other people in the room, and the other panelists also. The commitment of them coming to the panel. I always forget all the other 3 of them. I just wrote them in my fucking book, but likability. You have an hour with them to build your likability with them. Reciprocity. You're giving them information without asking anything in return. And then the other one, which I always forget one. But the panel gives you all of that shit. All 6 of them in one thing. The scarcity part because you only have that hour. Oh, scarcity because you only have that hour. Like if they're not there in that hour, they can't get it anywhere else. So I kind of manipulated it into doing 2 additional things, which actually do help sales. The first is at the end of. So I bring my books, and I put them in the front, and then I reference them whenever I talk. That's just the thing that I do anyway. But the 2 that I do is at the end of the panel, I say this or some variation of this. Okay, so you spent an hour with us. Let me give you 2 reasons why you should come to every one of our tables and buy our books. The first one is that this is how we make our living, selling books. We can do this stuff for free because we sell books. That's our selfish reason. Like, that's never gotten anyone to buy a book ever in the history of the world. Not zero people have ever bought a book because of that. Let me give you the reason why you should buy a book for your own benefit. All of us have just spent an hour giving you our best information. And you want to kind of see if that information is shitty or not, don't you? I mean, you want to do your own market research to see if the books are good, bad, or indifferent. So by coming to our table and buying the book, you can immediately see if we know what we're talking about or if you should discount all of our knowledge. That's the reason that you should buy
it. That's nice. And it works, doesn't it?
It works. I make about $80 to $100 every time I do a panel, like clockwork.
See, that's awesome. Do you just email the I'm sure.
Yeah, I just find the program. I find the programming person, so it's usually programming, and I email them. I started at small cons, so I started at local cons, and then I had people that had offered to put me on convention things, so I had emailed some of my friends and said, "Hey, do you have any convention things that I could do?" I went to local writers and creators workshops and did them, and then I had a little thing you could find if you go to russellnolte.com. russellnolte.com/hire. You can see when I email someone, I list every single panel, all of the conventions that I've worked with before. I have a little video. I have a whole thing that I do.
Nice. So that helps, and they're like, "Oh wow, I want this guy."
Exactly. I mean, most big cons do a panel call. You just have to know when that is. And generally, I would look at the panel schedule for my friends, or I'd look at my Facebook feed for the friends that had all of the panel stuff. And then I would be like, oh, he's on a panel, he's moderating a panel. I can be on that panel. And frankly, the number one way is I walked into panels that I thought I was qualified for and asked if they had another spot.
Oh, cool. So you did, and they said sure, and then that's great.
I just have no fucking shame, so
which is what you have to do.
Yeah, and the second thing that I do is I bring an iPad, if I remember it. I have a little a tablet, and I start on one corner and I say, this is my mailing list. It's for my podcast or my thing. Can you just pass it all around? And if there's 100 people, I usually get 20 or 30 email addresses from there. If it's a smaller one, I'll get 5 or 10.
See, that's fantastic. That's one thing I learned from Tyler, just from listening to his podcast, Tyler James, was how important those email addresses are for that mailing list. I didn't really start doing that until later in the summer this past year, and just to build that mailing list. But man, that alone is worth it.
Yeah, I mean,
I look at email as currency.
so the problem is when people say, "Well, I can't be at my table to make that money."
Yeah, that was my next question. Do you usually do you just put like we'll be back soon doing a panel, or
Nope.
what do you
I
do?
usually at big shows, I almost always split my table, and then I just ask. I just say, "Hey, if someone comes over to ask, can you just hook it up, and I'll hook you up when you go to the bathroom too." Actually, what I say is I really don't give a shit if someone steals my stuff, which is true. That's their
Yeah,
karma. So like if they
yeah,
want to steal if they want to steal 50 copies of fucking Katrina Hates the Dead or Katrina Hates Dead shit, then like that's a them problem, not a
yeah.
me problem.
That's so funny because I feel the same way about my stuff. It's like, in a weird way, it's almost a form of advertising. It's like, yeah, if you steal multiple ones, be sure to give it to somebody at
I
least.
mean, I've never had, I knock on wood, I've not had people steal my books.
Hmm.
At least in like a, I count roughly when I come and when I leave, but like I know that if I'm at my table, so I also try and schedule them on shitty times. So like 2 o'clock's a pretty shitty time to sell.
Yeah,
10 o'clock's a pretty shitty time to sell, and I just
yeah,
try and schedule it like during some kind of shitty times to sell. What
which is
ends
smart.
what ends up happening is so because I in my mailing list I put when my panels are at big shows.
Hmm.
When at a big show, I will have the most amount of people who I know waiting around my table after my show, after my panel,
Hmm.
because they know that they know for a fact I'm coming back to my table after my thing. So when I did this at Kamikaze or LA Comic Con, I had like 10 or 20 people who weren't even in my panel, just like fans and friends of mine sitting around my table. In that hour alone, I did like $600 of business just
Oh, that's
after
awesome.
my show.
And I think that's what a lot of artists are missing is logging this stuff, like realizing this stuff and adjusting accordingly. Like I'm sure you've seen it. I'm positive you've seen it. Is a lot of artists typically, I guess, are introverts and they don't know a lot of sales. So a lot of times when you go to these conventions, a lot of them are just drawing and they're not approaching people and they're not approaching it like a business. One thing that I've done when I've gone is like I love to help people out. I don't know. I think it's just in my nature, and especially when someone asks for help, I love trying to tweak things, and with my own business too, with trying to sell. I mean, my key thing that I would recommend. I don't know if you do this, but giving away. I created this little 8-page preview for my book, and I was able to get a really good printing deal. And I looked at it, as a advertising cost because essentially that's what it was. But when people go to Comic Cons, typically they're there because they're comic lovers. So who doesn't want a free comic? So I have a pitch where I get, hey, you want a free comic? And a lot of times people say yes, the majority of the time. And if they actually open up and look through it, I give them the 2-minute pitch. But if it looks like, they're just trying to be nice and they're kind of still walking, I'm like, hey, all we ask is if you like what you read, we're here all weekend, or you can buy it online, which the website's on the back. And that has gone leaps and bounds. And I just think a lot of artists, if they just, I don't know, smiled and like approached or just a little bit more approachable, because there's so much talent out there. It's unbelievable.
All right, so I'm going to tell you why I don't like that idea. I'll tell you what
Well,
I do like about it and what I don't like about it real quick.
sure.
I like that it's free and that it's very easy to get to. What I don't like is that you don't get an email address to get that to get that free comic book. And here's why. Um,
Okay.
when you give something to someone for free, you are not building the commitment on their side. So you are valuing your book at free, which means why would somebody buy your? Someone will value that at free also. However, if you get an email from that, they place value on the thing that you're giving them. So I have freebie crap like cards that I give away, but we also
Yeah.
have these little 5x7 prints that we give away as well. And for those 5x7 prints, you have to give us your email. It's not a lot. Like I'm not asking a lot. I'm just asking that you state your commitment to our brand, and by giving something that you value, which is your email address, the place you value most online, and in return, I will so over deliver on this print, and every print that you get and every email that you get, it will be worth it. But if you don't think it, you can unsubscribe, but you have to at least give me something of value in order for you to get something of value, and that is how I get people to spend $30 to $50 at my table instead of like $5 to $10 or nothing at my table.
So how do there's a group of people. It's a decently busy. I'm painting a picture for you. So it's a decently busy convention. How do you get them to your table if you don't give them something free? That's my counter argument.
Sure, I say. So here's what I say. You want to see something cool?
Oh, okay.
And then they say, yeah, I want to see something cool. Or they say, go pound sand or whatever they do. It doesn't matter. They come to my table, and I give them the first of 3 optional closes, which is I start by saying, okay, I have 2 books on my table. I say, do you like girls that kick butt or psychological mind screws, except I curse instead. And I say, okay. And then they say, well, I like this one or I like the other one or whatever they say. They only have 2 options, and if they say anything else, I go with the third my bestseller. And then I give them a pitch at that point. And after the pitch, I say, pretty cool, right? And they say, yes. And sorry, I guess it's not the third of the optional closes. It's the first of 3 buy-ins that I give them. The first is, do you want to see something cool? They come to my table, so they've self-selected as wanting to see something cool, or do you want to see a cool comic, or do you like murder, whatever the main pitch is. And then I say, okay, do you like girls that kick butt or psychological mind screws? They've now second buy-in that whatever they pick is something that they're interested in. So now they want to see a cool comic. I'm showing them a thing they like, and then at the end I have the pitch, which is 10 to 15 seconds. Maybe a minute. I say, that was cool, right? And they say yes. If they don't like the thing, or if they're like, I don't know, if they're on the fence, I say, okay, cool, man. So how about this? Go around the con, think about it. We'll be here all weekend. Meanwhile, here's a free thing. All I need is your mailing list, and I'll give this to you for free. And they say, all right. If it looks good, we used to do buttons. They were a little bit too expensive, so we came down to just prints. They go, okay, I get the print. So either they're going to buy it, or they're most likely going to sign up for the mailing list, or I've only wasted like a minute and a half of my time. But everyone that leaves my table can leave with a free crappy postcard or a business card. They can all leave with that for free with doing nothing. But if they want the thing that if they want the nice thing, the 8-page comic, the button, the print, the thing that is beautifully made, I put a value on it at $5. So if I want to give this to you for free, I'm going to charge you $5 or the cost of your email address.
See, that's awesome. I'm going to iterate that. That makes so much sense. Out of curiosity, how big is your email list?
Overall, there's 7,000 people on it.
See, that's incredible.
But
that's awesome.
3,500 are only for Kickstarter. About another 1,000 or so are like inactive people who don't really open emails, which you'll see after like a year. They're people that will never have opened your email ever. And then another like 700 have been blacklisted, so that means they've unsubscribed out of that 7,000. So about and I just took another 1,000 off. So there's about 2,000 on my main wannabe press list and about 300 on my business of art list that actually actively like open things and like engage. But there's
I take it you use a program like MailChimp or something?
Yeah, except I use Sendinblue, which is like 1/10 of the price and like triple the functionality.
Oh, here, let me write this down. What was it called?
Sendinblue.
Sendinblue. Do you have any like referral source where if I say your name you get kickback?
I don't know. Maybe I'll look into that after this.
Look into that, but I'm.
But yeah, I mean it's great because it's like $5 a month. It has all of the well, I don't know how much it is now, but when I got it, it was like $5 a month because I signed up for a year, and it has all of the autoresponder indoctrination sequence stuff. It is not as sleek and beautiful as MailChimp. And it's a lot more clunky, but while MailChimp was charging me somewhere around $100 a month,
Yeah.
This one's charging me like $5 a month. And the best part is MailChimp charges you by how many subscribers that you have. So let's say you segment a list and you only have like 500 people in that. You only want to send an email to 500 people. They still charge you for having a 2,000 person mailing list. Whereas Sendinblue charges by how many emails you actually send a month, which is a way better system. You could have 1 million
Absolutely.
people on your list, and if you only want to send it to 10, you only get charged for 10 emails.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah,
Let me know before I start doing it, because that's something I'm gonna, I'm starting to build this, and that's also on my things to do list in 2017 is to really manage that mailing list, especially after I'm able to make some of these announcements in the next few weeks. So
yeah. It's super important. The one thing I will say about MailChimp is it integrates with everyone super easily, and Sendinblue doesn't integrate that well. But a little trick: MailChimp has a offline subscribe capture. So what I do is, when I go to a show or when I have an integration that I need to do, I do it all through MailChimp because they have 2,000 subscribers for free. I download it all. I get all the stuff off of wherever the program is, and then I upload it to Sendinblue.
Okay.
So I still have to manually upload stuff, but I don't have to click one at a time every single time or figure out Sendinblue's ridiculous form things. I use MailChimp for the functionality that MailChimp has, up to 2,000 free subscribers, and then I offload all of that stuff and upload it to Sendinblue, which is probably a violation of their terms of service, but
it works.
Well, they shouldn't be charging me $100 a month. I'm not making $100 a month on my mailing list. It's insane.
Yeah.
And so here's what MailChimp used to do. They used to charge after 2,000, but their chunks were 500 or 1,000 people. So you would pay $20 at 2,000 and then $25 at 3,000. That's pretty reasonable. But what ended up happening is they went from 1,000 to 500 to 300 to 200, and so now for the same 3,000 people, I was paying almost $30 or $50 a month, whatever that number is, just 5 times 5, 25, almost $50 a month, for the same amount of emails that I was sending and getting in.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, I get it. They're a business. I'm sure Sendinblue is going to go up higher, too. They're all going to go up higher. And when Sendinblue goes up higher, I'm going to find something else that does it for cheaper. Or I'll be so successful, I don't really care. But the thing is...
So let me ask a real quick question. When was it from the beginning you realized the power of having email addresses? Or was it like you where it was an aha moment? Or like me, I should say. An aha moment where I was like, I really need to start doing this. This is something. I mean, did you do it from the beginning?
So I'm going to give some credit to Green Inbox for this, because even though I don't use their service anymore, so do you know what Green Inbox is?
Yeah.
Okay, so for those that don't know, Green Inbox is basically it sends emails to your Facebook friends. Basically, that's what it does during a Kickstarter campaign. And I would see, so I paid, I don't know, some amount of money, $100, $200, $300 for them to send emails out during my campaign. And I got back $1,500. It was $1,500 of stuff. And I was like, holy crap, that is a lot of money that I'm just leaving on the table by not having an email list. I also went to San Diego. So that was the second part. That happened in September of 2015. In July of 2015, I went to San Diego Comic-Con exhibiting for the first time. I'd been there signing for other publishers before and doing some other stuff. This is the first time I had my table. And I spent so much fucking money. And at the end of it, I had barely broken even. I'd gotten rid of a ton of my stock. And I had 50 people that I could talk to after that. I like 50 emails that I had gotten over the course of that whole week. And best case scenario, I had made maybe $100 after killing myself for 5 days. And so between those two things, I was like, fuck this. This is never happening again. Like, I am going to communicate with fans. I am going to get email addresses. I'm going to assume a lot of people are going to fall off, but I don't want to be doing 50 cons a year for the rest of my God-given life. Like, I want to be doing 10 to 15 a year on like a heavy year and being able to communicate with my fans online where they are.
Now, do you still do San Diego, or was that like a one and done thing?
Oh no, I love San Diego. Hey man, I love San Diego Comic-Con. It's a great way to meet all the other creators that you're friends with or fans of. Go from fans to go from fan to friend with a lot of people, like Tom Zoller, who draws My Little Pony and a bunch of other stuff. Like, I started as a fan of his, and he was part of my my indie passport for Comic-Con last year. We got a bunch of creators all that were all like indie creators, and we did like a stamp passport for all of them. So like people that come to our table could like go to all the tables and get like little stamps. It was very cool. But like,
that's a great idea.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very good at
awesome.
this stuff. But like Comic-Con and like these big conventions are great for growing a brand quickly and effectively. If someone was like, you have $1,000, how are you going to get people to know who you are? It would be, I'd be going to conventions because I know that if I spend a little bit of money at conventions, I can get a huge result. Like, I could pay, if I go to the right convention, I could put like $100 in and get $1,600 out theoretically, which happened this year. I did a show. I did Bakersfield Comic-Con. It cost me about $100 because I split a table and then like I shared a room, so it ended up being about $150, and I made $1,600 in the course of 2 days there.
See, that's awesome. Yeah, that was the example you used on one of your earlier podcasts.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
listen to it. That's man.
Similar thing happened like the next weekend. I went to Palm Springs Comic-Con, and I've dropped another about $150, made $1,000 there. 2 weeks before, I was at Los Angeles Comic-Con and on Halloween, and I dropped maybe like $250 total there and made $1,600. So like I can make like anyone who says they're not doing money, that they can't make money at shows, either doesn't have enough product to like haven't brought enough product to physically make money at the show, or they're doing it wholly wrong, like we talked about earlier.
Yep.
But
that's awesome. And I did notice. Again, thank you, by the way, for sharing that list. It's fantastic. That the convention list and what you did and the rating system and everything like that. That was awesome. So, and the one thing I did notice was, you drive to most of your conventions, correct? How many do you actually fly to, or is there any?
I mean, I am trying to. So one of the things that I think people fail at is expanding too quickly. So there's a company in your state which may or may not put out way too many titles in a year, and have from the very, very beginning of their reign, of when they started coming out. And it felt like I don't have I'm not an insider of this company, but it felt like none of their titles were getting national recognition or enough recognition, because the following week, like 2 more were going to come out. And when you're at the beginning, the problem with that is that when you start, you're a regional brand. You're a small regional, local brand even to your city. And I think people too quickly try to become a national brand when they haven't even conquered their local area yet. So our goal initially was to get really good at Los Angeles and Southern California and California-based conventions. Have a huge brand awareness here, so that we could go to bigger shows and then amplify that message now. But we wanted to be able to make money. Like when we go to a Los Angeles-based show, we make money so that we can fund going to like Emerald City or AwesomeCon and then expanding that brand. But this is I know that if I go to a show every month or every week in Los Angeles, I'm going to see some of the same people, and I'm going to be able to continually touch them, not just online, but in person. And so that is very important to us, because when we go to a show like Emerald City or Comic-Con or AwesomeCon or New York City Comic-Con or C2E2 or MegaCon, we are not going to be in that location for another year. So while that's important to get to those shows, we put a lot more value on Los Angeles, because that's where we live. That's where we can really saturate a market and be all of the places. Now, there's a lot of other people here that are also doing similarly, but by focusing locally, we were able to really, and doing 40 shows or 36 shows total last year, of which like 30 were in Los Angeles or California. We were able to really focus the message of people in Los Angeles. I hope to God, if you go to shows, you know who we are, because you saw us over and over and over again. Now, last year we went to San Diego, which, even though Southern California was a drive. So ones we flew to we only flew to two last year: AwesomeCon and Ithaca Con, and that's where my mother and father live.
Gotcha. So you had a setup. You had a place to stay.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to see them. So I'm going to go back to AwesomeCon for a similar reason. But we're also going
Where's AwesomeCon at? Is that
DC,
in Virginia?
DC.
DC. Okay.
Yeah, we're also going to try and go to Emerald. We're also going to Emerald City, and then we're going to try and go to New York Comic-Con. But these are big expenses, man. Like most small companies, there's no reason why they should be flying to these big shows in other places when there's big shows locally. Now, maybe you live in the middle of Alabama, and it's the best you can do is to fly to a show. But the minute that you fly to a show, you add on, and this is for me specifically because I have books, not like single issues. I add on hundreds of dollars in shipping costs that I can't put in my trunk, hundreds of dollars in flight costs, and theoretically, potentially drayage fees for them to keep my books at the convention center. Those are for sure. I probably also have car costs because I have to get a car there or an Uber or something. When I can drive, and 5-hour drive or 7-hour, or like a 5-hour drive isn't bad. I can get all of my stuff in my car, everything that I need in my car. I then don't have to pay for a car. I don't have to pay for shipping. I still have to pay for a hotel. But if you are going to a big show where other people are going to be there, you can probably find someone to split a hotel with you and make it much cheaper. And then you don't have any of the other costs. So to me, the act of flying means I have to be able to make at least $1,000 extra on that show, at least, over what I could do locally. For instance, Phoenix Comic-Con is the same weekend as MegaCon this year.
Yep.
And Phoenix is a drive show, and MegaCon is a fly show, which means I would have to get basically a free table at MegaCon for it to make sense. And even then, they would have to get drayage paid for, and I would have to not be able to pay, and shipping paid for, and I would have to not be able to get an equally priced table at Phoenix Con. So the only table that they have at Phoenix Con is like an $800, $900 table. So even if all things are being equal, I said I put $1,000 of additional cost on flying. Even all things being equal, I should still go to Phoenix because it will cost me less money to be at Phoenix, even though the table itself is 3 times more expensive.
Yeah, and I've heard Phoenix is incredible. My buddy, like I was telling you when we were talking before, on Facebook, that my buddy, who's an artist who goes around and does the prints and stuff, and Phoenix until San Francisco, which is a newer con. I don't know if you did that, but that was his best con ever, and he's been doing cons for about 4 years.
Yeah.
And that was the first one this year. But he did San Francisco. I did Salt Lake City, and his buddy did. God, I can't remember. No, Phoenix wasn't that weekend, but before that, Phoenix was his best show. He said it was unbelievable.
Yeah,
I think I was in Dallas that when he was doing Phoenix.
It's crazy. I mean, and you also would get 3 times more table at like the Phoenix show than if you got a free table at MegaCon.
Mm-hmm.
So
do you ever do Wizard World?
No.
Yeah, most people don't. I was just curious.
I mean, there's some things that Wizard look. I also don't do My Little Pony conventions, or I also there's a lot of things that I don't do. I do horror shows, monster shows, anime shows, and Comic-Con shows. That is an autograph show, which is fine. Like, that's all right. Like, hey, man, Wizard World, do your thing, man. But, like, I know the 4 things that I can really do well, which are, like, my books have monsters. They have psychological mind-screwy type stuff. They're very manga-inspired, so they work very well at Comic-Cons, anime manga cons, and, like, horror-ish type cons. And, you know, what's nice is when you do all of these shows, you really start seeing, like, where your return customers are, especially when you do them in the same city. This is another great thing about doing it in the same city. When you go to other cities all the time, you might see the same kind of person, but you don't necessarily see the exact same human being walking past your booth over and over and over again. Like, I have some months where I will see the same person at every show, and they will talk to me for 5 to 10 minutes every time I see them. And so I really, really, really know those kind of customers and why those customers buy, because I've now spent, over the course of a year, an hour or 2 with them. And that's not even when they come to my panels or stuff or such. So when you go to a bunch of shows in a bunch of other areas, you can sort of see see a trend of the kinds of people that buy. When you do a lot of shows in the same sort of metroplex, you will almost assuredly see the same human being that will come by your table and either buy more. Or I also have people that pass by my table every single time. Like, they don't even, like, they know that I exist because I'm very loud. And I've seen them. I may have talked to them once, but then I don't talk to them a second or third time. Or maybe I see them at one show and they don't come, and another show they don't come, and another show they do come by my booth, and then maybe they buy that third time. So but when you see the same human being and you can track what actions they perform and kind of get a sense of their personality and who they are, you sort of can better market to an overall person because you know that one person so well.
No, I'm with you. Like you mentioned earlier that you planned, I guess in a perfect world, to do 15. I know that you did 50 last year, right? Over 50 conventions?
So I did 47 total appearances, of which 36 were some kind of convention, of which like 30 of them were within a drive and back scenario, where like I could get there in a day.
That's impressive, man. I thought I did, I think 22 last year, and I mean, you doubled mine. But you said ideally you would like to do 15.
Yeah,
Is that
I do like a 15
for this year?
No, I've already got over 20 booked this year, and I haven't even booked a lot of them. Like, I literally have a con every weekend or an appearance every weekend except for 2 weekends in the first quarter of this year.
Wow.
So, and who knows? So I have one weekend I have nothing to do. And another weekend I have a speaking engagement, and then another weekend I have, again, nothing to do. But so like a good 8 weekends of the first quarter of this year are booked. But that's because we're also doing a Kickstarter the first quarter of this year. So part of it is like I need to be there. But this is another advantage of doing a lot of small shows, no matter how small the show is like I probably couldn't do more than 15 shows if I had to travel to all of those shows. But me saying I will do any show in Los Angeles County or even in Southern California means that I only have to drive, and the recovery time from driving is way different than the recovery time from flying.
Absolutely. Amen to that. I wish they had as many shows in the Florida area as they do out there. I mean, you're in the right market, that's for sure.
Well, I feel like maybe you should. So one of the things that I did is I created my own con day at a show, and I did Free Comic Book Day as another one. And I know there's a lot of shows in Florida because I just talked to Martin Dunn a couple of weeks ago, and he was just complaining about how many shows there are in Florida. I know there's a show in Pensacola, Tampa, like 3 in Orlando, Miami.
See, that's what's funny about Pensacola. So from where I'm at in Florida, I'm in Southwest Florida. To get to Pensacola, it is probably a 14-hour drive.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's close in California and in Florida, but I considered like Holiday Con and other like small shows. Like I just never said no to a convention this year. And,
Gotcha.
And no matter how small, if it was at a store, if there was like 3 people in that store, okay, cool, man. If it was at a church, okay, cool, man. Whatever it was, like if someone wanted to do a show, I was there. And I was willing to pull out a credit card if need be to be at that show. And when you do that, if I pull up my convention schedule here, I'll pull up my convention schedule really quickly. This has become a very weird show where like you're both mostly interviewing me, but
I know. Sorry about that.
It's cool. So so this weekend, so this is now the first week of January. I have Los Angeles Comic and Sci-Fi Con this weekend, very small show.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have Anime Impulse. Oh, so this is the other things. I have 3 different types of shows that I do. So when you have 3 different types of shows, you'll see there are very different types of shows. So then next weekend I have Anime Impulse. Then the next weekend I have a show in a gallery in Highland Park called Earth Realm Comic Convention. Then Anime Los Angeles. Then a week off. Then I have a speaking engagement where I'm moderating a panel at the Scriptwriters Network about the secrets to transmedia. Then Long Beach Comic Expo, Pasadena Comic-Con, Emerald City Comic-Con, a con at a library for Pasadena Library Comic Book Day, then San Fernando Valley Comic-Con, then a show at a art gallery, and then finally ending that at WonderCon. So, out of those...
But that's a good mix. You're absolutely right. I mean, there's a lot of anime conventions in there. There's, a couple galleries in there from... You're right. That is quite a bit of a mix. That anime must help because those are becoming popular as well. Those anime conventions, aren't they?
Yeah, but I took a chance on a couple of anime shows this past year, and if they really worked out. Like I did a cosplay con in Anime California, and while neither of them are doing a 4th year, like I ended up making quite a bit of money on those 2 shows. Out of a $200 spend, I think I made like $1,100 somewhere around that on those 2 shows. Like that's like I was like, well, and the people were super excited. It is the only place that that Ichabod outsells Katrina is at anime shows because it's like very weird and screwed up and very very manga inspired by like tonally like very dark tone. But I wouldn't have known that without like going to the anime shows. But I mean. And it's also partially like tailoring your pitch to that show. Like I know anime from watching a lot of it, and manga has really fucked up stuff. Like it's really like psychologically damaging to watch manga. And so Ichabod is equally psychologically damaging, and like it's very very dark. And so like being able to show that is and highlight that part really help with the anime stuff. So like when people say that I go to a lot of shows, I would counter by saying I do go to a lot of shows, but I also I'm also willing to do shows at galleries, at comic book stores. Last year I did a comic kickoff convention at a store, which was like basically me and the store, and it was like a live feed of a bunch of stores around the country doing it. So like these are...
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, I think I vaguely remember something. Was that on Free Comic Book Day or
no? This was
thereafter?
Like in March, around March.
Okay.
But I mean, that was sort of the comic convention. It's called Convention Kickoff. But again, like these are just small things. Like this is not like out of that. let's see. The comic is the Earth Realms. That's 1, 2. Scriptwriters Network. Pasadena 3. Pasadena Lam, and 4. So that's 4 shows this year that I'm booked for in the first quarter that are just at a gallery or at like a library, or at like a speaking engagement at like a network. Of those, then there's also 2 anime conventions. And then like local shows also. So San Fernando Valley Comic Con, Pasadena, like those are Long Beach. Like those are not, huge shows. And I don't know about anywhere else in this country. I physically
You
can't
just know
say
your area.
whether these shows will exist in your area, but I'm almost positive like there will at least be a show on all of the comic stores on Free Comic Book Day, and they're almost always looking for artists. There's a Buy Indie Comic Day in August, which I actually set up a bunch of creators. So I took a bunch of creators, and I went to the store and I said, hey, do you want to do an event? And they said, yes. I said, cool, you have the space. I'll find all the creators. I'll do all the stuff. All you have to do is set up the space that day and promote it to your people. And so I manufactured a show out of like out of just a day that kind of existed in Buy Indie Comic Day. I did a show.
That's fantastic. And it went real well?
Yeah, it wasn't a huge, all these are not huge sellers. Maybe some of these shows I'm making like $100 or so, but I'm also not spending money on a table, and it's usually a shorter, like maybe a 6 to 8 hour show, or maybe a 4 to 6 hour show. So like, I'm not like it ends up not being so bad. I also previously I've done a lot of signings at stores where I made some signings. I made like $400 in an evening.
Yeah, the comic store signings, when I'm looking back at my numbers last year, are just, they're bread and butter. I even give the comic store a percentage. I don't know if I'm stupid for doing that, but like, because a lot of those times I would have never met those people if they weren't gracious enough to bring them in. So I highly recommend that too. I can see how just comics. That's what I'm going to try to do this year at the beginning of the year. Is try to do as many comic stores around the state of Florida where either I can stay at someone's house or, I can plan a day trip of it where it doesn't cost that much, because that seems to go great, at least according to last year's numbers.
Yeah, they always go well as long as you have something new to show. And even sometimes if you don't have anything new to show. And as long as you take the 5 to 8 p.m. slot, not the 12 to 3 slot, and you do it on a Wednesday, not on Saturday.
So what? Oh, interesting. So Wednesdays and do the later slot, like people off a work slot, so to speak.
That is my recommendation. If there is 2 slots, or if they do a Wednesday and a Saturday show, generally you get the most rabid comic book fans coming in right after work between 5 and 8. Those have been my most successful shows. Bigger stores usually try and do like a smaller one. So you may, if you're a smaller creator. You may only be able to get the early slot. That's cool, man. You sell some things at the early slot, like they'll book you in the later slot later. But if you have your druthers, do the 5 to 8 slot on Wednesday.
Gotcha. Good to know.
At least, I don't know what your numbers state, but for my numbers, like that was consistently the highest selling one. I've done Saturday shows, nobody. Sunday signings, very few people. Wednesday in the afternoon. We have a lot of studios in LA, so doing a Wednesday afternoon lunchtime signing ends up working okay, because then you have some studio people coming in buying new content and stuff. But generally, like that 5 to 8 or 6 to 9 slot right after work on Wednesday is where you're going to get your diehards.
That's the money shot. Well, great, good to know. I didn't track it that way. I'm definitely going to track it now.
Yeah, and on top of that,
I'm learning stuff. I know this was supposed to be you interviewing me, but I've gotten some valuable stuff from this conversation.
Hey man, I never know how it's going to go. The point is that, like, my goal is that it feels like 2 people who are sitting down and getting coffee, and this is how some of my coffees go, and some of them go the other way. But
Which, speaking of which, I am going to be at Emerald. My sister lives in Seattle, and she actually just opened up a comic book store in Seattle in November called Outsider Comics, and it caters to the I always get this acronym wrong, LGBT
Yeah.
people. But yeah, I'm going to be up there during that time, so I would love to get actual coffee with you if you're free one of those
Nice.
days.
See, this is how it goes, man. This is how you build a network. So for all the people that are listening, like this is kind of a weird show, but this is but just so you kind of have a little history of how we met. My friend Walter. So this is I'll go back. My friend Walter Osley writes a book called Shiver Bureau, which did a really successful, awesome Kickstarter about a year and a half ago, a little less than a year and a half ago, and we were in the same quote unquote class of Kickstarter. So he was doing it was me of the friends in that like it was September 2015. It was me, Walter, Melissa Albino, and a couple of others. Um, and so that was how we met. We both basically donated to each other's campaigns or something. I don't remember how we exactly met. But we started talking for some reason.
Little
And
cross promotion, I'm sure.
I don't remember exactly how, but we ended up being friends and talking for a lot. Like me and Walter talk several times a week at this point. Um, and then he has kind of been looking for a publisher. He's kind of not been looking for a publisher. It's kind of, but eventually he came to you. And then Walter came to me to ask me about what to look for in a publishing deal, and
Mm-hmm.
I advised him on what to do. And I said you should, if these are the terms that you're getting, you should probably like take them because what the hell is there to lose? This is a really good deal. And then Walter later, like so this was like maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, right around Christmas
Mm-hmm.
time. Last week, Walter said, "You know who'd be really good for your show and who you should know? James, who is the publisher of Jamestown." And then we talked and arranged this for like the next week. But that is a very circuitous way where you can build connections that may not pay off for a year and a half, 2 years, maybe not pay off ever. But just by sort of being in the community and growing growing your helpfulness and being out there and being nice and communicative, you can, make these connections, and sometimes you don't even know where they're going to end up when you start them.
Oh, and I'll tell you what, just coming from my other line of work, which is very cutthroat, like I've probably been in the comics, this community, so to speak, this tight-knit community for about almost 2 years. And I'll tell you what, it's one of the most friendly, helpful group of people that generally everyone has not only been nice, but they've all been willing to lend a helping hand. And to me, it's like that's, with my experience, and that's kind of what made me start Jamestown with a group of like-minded creators, is just to help people get out there. Because personally, and I think you would probably agree, being an independent publisher yourself, Russell, is that there's an indie comic revolution going on right now, thanks to Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and other platforms, where I really feel like the big boys, including Image, Boom, IDW, are just missing out. They're completely missing out on. And the big goal right now, whether we like it or not, is that Diamond has a monopoly on the distribution of newer comics. Kickstarter is definitely, I don't even think intentionally. There was some number that Tyler had written or had said on one of his podcasts about 12% of the world's comics are purchased through Kickstarter. It just mind blowing.
I think if you take it, it's the third biggest publisher. If you take it all as a group,
really,
I think it's the third biggest publisher in the world.
And that's unintentional, really. And I don't know. I just feel like they're missing it, and taking a lot of my business sense and, like I said earlier, like-minded creators, I really think there's a way to get these amazing projects like Walter's, like yours, like I would like to hope mine, to the mass audience in a way that is cost-effective and it helps everyone, the creator and the publisher. And with my comic, I've been offered a couple of publishing deals. I ended up signing one with my individual comic, and I'm taking out with Solar Flare. But I'm also, with Jamestown Publishing, I'm doing my other comic ideas along with Walter's, and hopefully getting Diamond. But that's the big thing. I really think, coming to Diamond as a group and getting that distribution, I just think, it can help everybody out, and there's a way to make money and not be greedy. And that's what I tried to do with our publishing deals. I took all those contracts that I was offered and, put some money into it with with a entertainment lawyer and said, okay, let's take a look at these contracts, take the best wordage from it, and try to benefit both the publisher and also the creator. And I think we figured it out where everyone can win instead of one-sided, which a lot of them unfortunately are. So I don't know. We're taking it slowly, and hopefully things will work out. But again, learning stuff like listening to your podcast, listening to Tyler James's podcast, and doing these conventions, just having open ears and networking really helps tremendously.
Yeah, one thing I do like about conventions, to go back to our earlier conversations, it's really a great sort of proving ground for like what works and what doesn't work. So you might throw a book out there at a convention and it just doesn't sell. And you probably, if you can't sell it at a convention, you're not going to be able to sell it like online either. Because those are the most rabid. They are paying to be there to find. Like, they're not just looking. Like, they're paying to come and find cool indie books.
Yep.
Now,
have you ever? This is a little bit off topic. Have you ever done Heroes convention in Charlotte?
No, but I hear it's one of the better ones. Like,
It really is.
I would. So there's a couple that I have my eye on when we expand out from mostly doing West Coast cons. Heroes is one. MegaCon's another.
Baltimore. Yeah, I knew it. Yeah, that's the other one. It's made for indie creators.
Well, so the thing is SPX and Baltimore are generally a week apart. So you can fly in. If you get into SPX and you can get into Baltimore, you can you can fly in and do SPX is in Bethesda, Small Press Expo, and then Baltimore is in Baltimore. And so you can fly in and spend a week between those times. For me, I can hang out with family, but you could go to stores, you can do a signing, you can do some other stuff and maximize that time. The only problem is SPX is a curated show, and they don't and you don't know if you get in there for a very long time. Like, it's not like you could book both now. It's not like if it was Awesome Con in Baltimore where you could just book both and like be like, okay, cool, I'm going out there for a week. But I think that's why Baltimore is so good for like indie stuff, because not only do they have the Diamond Summit, but they also have SPX. So I think a lot of people do this, where they come out and they do the next, and they just stay for Baltimore the next weekend.
I think they just lost Diamond, though. I think the Summit this coming year is going to be the first year that they don't have the Summit, which kind of stinks for them, but it's a great convention.
Well, they also don't have I know they don't have the Harveys anymore. I don't know if they have the Diamond, if they have the Diamond Summit or not. But regardless, it's still 2 shows you can do. So those 2 shows, I really wanted to do C2E2, but I couldn't do that one. Dragon Con is another really good one. Those are sort of the big ones that I think that make it worth it, that I can make enough money out there and build enough of a brand recognition that I could that I could pay myself to fly out there and still make it worth my while. I could probably still pay my mortgage after I pay expenses.
And those big, I think you never know, but those are worth the risk, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's all a risk. Like, this is the thing about all business. Business is all a risk. Like, I'm launching this Kickstarter next month on Valentine's Day for this anthology called Monsters and Other Scary Shit, which Walter's in. And I'm trying to raise $20,000. The most of I've raised $21,000 total between 5 campaigns. So this is a huge risk, assuming I have the balls to go through with it and actually hit the button on 20,000. I don't chicken out and go lower. It's a huge risk to do $20,000. Maybe 100 anthology campaigns on Kickstarter have raised $20,000 or more on their campaign. Maybe a little bit more, I don't know. But I did some rough numbers, and it seemed like I went to the comics anthology category and then most funded, and it seemed like there were a little around 100 that got more than $20,000. And every time the issue is that unless you are happy with where you sit now, which most people are not, you must take risks to grow.
Absolutely.
This is what I tell everyone who I have a coaching call with is if you are happy with the amount of money you made last year, cool. Hey man, like great. You shouldn't coach. Like don't get coaching, man. Like just go and do your thing. But if you're not happy and you want to get to the next level, then you should probably like you have to take risks. You have to do things to elevate yourself to that next level, One of the things we're doing this year is we're going to be doing a lot more ads. And that is really scary because I lost $6,000 on ads in the last year.
But here's to play devil's advocate with that. You lost 6,000. Like there's a certain variable in that you can't comprehend it correctly. Like those ads got how many eyeballs on it? It's not a complete loss in my opinion. You have to look at the positive of it.
Yeah,
too.
except that my goal this year is to be able to have a business that you put $1 in and get $2 out. No matter what. You can
good goal.
That is right now. That's not been historically how Wannabe Press has worked. We mostly put $1 in, and we've mostly put $2 in and get $1 out. That's how the past 2 years have looked.
But you have to build your business, so that's smart. You're at that point with most businesses, new businesses. They typically say the 3-year point, but where you start altering, it's gotta. You have to start turning a profit eventually.
Yes.
Otherwise it's an expensive hobby.
But going back to the point was just like you were always taking risks. Like it was a risk to make a book. Smaller risk than it is now to go and try. It was a risk to launch a $3,500 Kickstarter the first time I did it. And then it was a risk to do a $5,500 one the next time. I think the risk is intrinsically built into like how quote unquote successful you are. So the risk for Apple to launch a new iPhone is going to be way higher. Like they're going to expect to make like billions of dollars. So like like the amount that they're going to put and the effort they're going to put in but it's always going to go up every single time. It never goes down. So I don't when people ask me what the thing is that you have to be an entrepreneur, it's like you have to be pretty okay with like constant crippling self-doubt and risk that you're always going to have to take.
Yep, and that's one of the advantages of being in business for yourself. You have unlimited potential for gain, but you also have the loss, and you wake up, every month you start at zero, and you just have to. But that's the advantage, and it seems like the risk you're taking, Russell, is a calculated risk.
Yes.
This isn't your first rodeo with Kickstarter. I imagine since your first Kickstarter to this Kickstarter, you know what works a lot better than you did at the first one. And then I'm sure your printing deals, you probably have a better printer perhaps than you did at the beginning. So to say that it's just it sounds to me like just from knowing you, even though I haven't known you long, it sounds like you're going about it the correct way.
Yeah, so business is all about taking high percentage risks and hoping and knowing that if you keep taking high percentage risks, you will succeed more than you will lose over the long term. But, as a person who studies business a lot, I have seen a lot of product launches from very profitable, successful companies that are disasters. So even when you feel like all of the things are lined up, it might still fail. That's not necessarily a condemnation of you. It is just the fact that all you can do
timing and bad luck.
Yeah, and putting the most high value risks, high percentage risks out there in a row, and knowing that, hey man, if all of these really are 90% to hit, the chances that I'm gonna fail on more than like 2 or 3 are pretty bad. But you're gonna fall flat on your face in at least a couple of those 10, and you have to be okay with that. If you don't have that, you really can't be in business for yourself.
Yep. And I got a quick story to tell you. I came up with this idea actually not just myself, one of my friends, we were just spitballing on the way to a convention, believe it or not. But with my book Solar Flare, which is all about a solar flare hitting, wiping out all electricity. Think it's apocalyptic / post-apocalyptic tale. So we came up with a high dollar, or I should say high profit margin add-on merchandising with a solar flare survival backpack. So I initially came out with about 60 of them, and I sold out of them. And it was a huge, markup for me. So the only difference is that I wanted to now get them specially made, like have my logo stitched to them instead of getting these zipper ties to brand it. So long story short, I went through Alibaba for the first time, and I got a deal, and I had all these different Chinese manufacturers pitching me, and I picked one. But little did I know all the different custom fees. Initially, when I first ordered the regular, everything was shipped to my door. Shipping was included. I thought I had projected that correctly to the Chinese wholesaler that I went through. It ended up being double what I thought I was going to pay. I still have that same markup, or it's not a third where I'm making a third, 3 times the money. Now it's only I double my money, so to speak. But you just have to learn, as you go along. I thought I was taking a great risk, and I end up making a mistake. So,
Yeah,
and that happens in all businesses,
Yeah, man. I mean, I had I wrote a check for a lot of money to get this membership site called Kickstarter University off the ground last year. It seemed like things that everyone wanted.
Yeah.
And out of that $4,000 that I spent, I made back like $6, maybe $6, I think, total of that 4,000. I ended up having to build the website myself, all the integrations myself. And I paid somebody to do all of this stuff for me, So, yeah, but again, you're talking about, and then when I finally launched it, to crickets, nobody. It was like everything someone tells you not to do in a product launch. I guess I just had to experience myself. But I mean, it's true. All you can do is take the best high percentage risks, and over time, the accuracy with which Apple can predict the risk that they're going to take is much, much better now than it was 30 or 40 years ago. Because, when they were just making computers in their garage, what did they have? They had a computer and they sold it by hand. They had a business, but it's not like they have now where they're a juggernaut. So,
Yep.
You kind of have to. I always say the thing I like about Kickstarter is that you can validate your idea real quickly.
Yeah.
You could do a $500 goal on Kickstarter, and then at least if you hit it at $1,500, cool, man, you had data. But I think so many entrepreneurs, creative entrepreneurs especially, try to predict out all of this stuff with no data. And unfortunately, you can't predict things when you don't have data to back it up. When I did Ichabod, the only reason we actually did Ichabod was I got a publishing deal. And then I was like, oh, cool, publishing deal. Now I'm going to do this whole book. But somebody validated that process over the course of it. So I do think that if you're going to be doing all of these pieces, what's great about what you're talking about is, you end up validating all of these pieces at a small level. You got 60 backpacks, you saw they sold, and then you went to get 1,000 backpacks or however many you got.
I just got 100. Yeah, but I had numbers, so I thought.
Right, and then if you sell that 100, you'll probably go back and get 200, and then each time the margin's going to go up, and you can either reduce the cost to get as the price goes down, so that you can sell more units. Or you can just keep that nice profit margin and maybe make the book better or the product slightly better at each incarnation. To say oh, why is this worth $30? Well, the first time we just stitched it in, and now I don't know backpacks. Now it's leather instead of regular, so it's still the But what's really interesting about manufacturing is that as you increase the base price to go from base price to lots of increasing of like quality is very minimal. But you can upcharge those things quite a bit. Like going from a regular book to a hardcover book, it may be 60 or 80 or maybe $1 more, but you could charge $10 more for that book just by doing that slight upgrade. By doing by doing an oversized book, it might cost you another $1, but you could charge another $10 for it. So, there are all these things that you can do, but you can only do them once you understand the thing you're trying to do. And the only way to understand the thing you're trying to do is to do it. And understand you're probably going to get egg in your face at the beginning.
That just, yeah, it's the nature of the beast. And how fast you get up from getting knocked down, so to speak.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
It's cliche, but it's the truth,
I don't know. It's like it's the kind of business cliche that people that are business listen to, but I don't know if it's like a general cliche that everybody hears. But it is all about getting knocked down. It is all about how fast you get knocked up. I don't think Mike Tyson wants to take a punch any more than I want to take a punch. He probably wants to take a punch less than I want to take a punch because he knows just how hard it's going to hit, how bad it's going to be. But the only difference is that he gets hit and then hits back.
Yeah. And I remember hearing this when I was going through my brokerage training, 15 years ago. I remember my regional leader at the time, who was kind of in charge of all the brokers in his region. We at the beginning, when you become a stockbroker, you have to do a lot of these training classes. And it gets monotonous, so monotonous. And one thing that I've applied it to so many different things in my life, and I definitely applied it to conventions and situations like the backpack. And what he would say is, like, out of these classes that you do, if you just take away one thing, from this, even though everything else might be the same, but there's one thing that you learn from it, it is never, never a loss. And that's kind of how I look at the backpack situation, any kind of negativity that has happened to me. I try to take a positive out of it and move forward and try not to make that same mistake again.
Right. Yeah. If you don't make the same mistake again, as long as you didn't take too much of a bath on it, you can recover from that mistake. I mean, look, there are people that have been multiple millions of dollars in debt that I've seen. I've seen them like wipe that all out in like one good product idea. I'm not saying get into $1 million of debt, but like I have seen like fortunes won and lost very quickly.
Yeah, I'm sure being out in LA, you hear about it quite a bit.
For sure. All right. So we've been going now for way too long in an episode that like doesn't have any structure into it, and I want to end this before we end it by talking about your company in a little bit more detail. So can you tell us more about Jamestown Publishing? When are you launching? What is your first slate going to look like?
All right.
All of those
so
things.
Basically, we started it in late November. We just got all creator contracts for the first launch, which we're planning on launching 4 titles, and I can actually make those announcements now because I got all the contracts in just before the end of the year. But the titles are going to be Shiver Bureau by Walter Osley, Red Angel Dragnet by Eric Palicki. It's going to be my book, Long Live Pro Wrestling, by myself and Branko Jovanovic. And then the final one is Stabbity Bunny by Richard Rivera. And we plan on launching, really right now we're at the whim of Diamond because I'm taking this presentation. It's probably going to be in the next week or so, going to Diamond to get this distribution. So we have a printer lined up, which is Diamond's preferred printer. From what I heard is a huge obstacle. Once you have that, Diamond pretty much gives you a thumbs up. So what we're predicting is probably over the summers when the books will be released. But the concept of our publishing company is we're taking successful, like-minded individuals, bring them together in order to deliver their work to the masses. And the criteria to get in, and this is, again, calculated risks, is successfully funded Kickstarter projects that's a caveat to be part of the company. And the fact that you're a convention warrior like myself, a self-starter, where if a marketing machine got behind you, it's going to benefit not just the company, but also the creator. So those are going to be our 4 launch titles. That's kind of the criteria to get in. And the reason why we did that was if the works are already completed, from doing research on publishing companies, that one of the biggest, I guess, flaws to a new publishing company is a delay. One of the art team or the writer or the editor or somebody can't keep a deadline. And then when you solicit through Diamond, since everything's 2 months, 3 months ahead of time, if issue 1 gets delayed, then 2, 3, and 4 will be delayed as well. So if we're taking something that's already been created and has a built-in following, it just makes sense to deliver it to more, a bigger audience.
For sure.
So that's the goal of Jamestown. And, we don't want to nickel and dime our creators. We're all in it together. We want to look at the people who join the team as a family. Again, my background is sales. So I tell all the creators, I'm going to back your project, just like I'm backing my own. So, and I think that's another big thing is I've come up with a sales guideline that we're going to give to all our creators about how, ideas on how to sell your stuff. Sorry about that. My dog's in the background, but yeah, that's all about Jamestown. That's kind of what we're doing. We're going to do it slowly but surely, and knock on wood, things work out.
Awesome, man. And how many issues have to be done before somebody is qualified, before you'll look at their stuff?
Probably like a story arc. So that's the other thing that I'm looking at. Again, to use Walter as an example, Shiver Bureau, he just did it in a hardcover format. So basically what he wants is, or what we're doing is we're going to take that and put it into 6 separate issues. And it's only for those 6 issues. Shiver Bureau to him is going to be an ongoing, but Jamestown's only going to publish those first 6. So preferably we just want a story arc complete. And essentially, like in Walter's case, he just has to come up with some covers, and we're going to be selling it in individual comic format.
Awesome. And is there any minimum that a person has to have raised on a Kickstarter campaign?
No, there's really not a minimum. I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with the creators themselves. If they fit in, if they're, like-minded, if they're go-getters, that's a big thing. We have a committee of people where we look at projects. And like I said, we're starting slow, but I've gotten to know Walter and a lot of these creators just throughout the past 2 years. And just like you said earlier in the podcast, where you just start linking with people and you become friends. And that's kind of how it grew to what hopefully it is going to be,
Cool, man. Yeah, I love Shiver Bureau and I love Stabbity Bunny. I really hope that someday they change it to Stabbity Rabbity, but
that's amazing. I have a phone call with Richard tonight. I will pass on the suggestion.
Nice.
Just a fantastic guy. See, that's the key. Is these creators that I've partnered with, they are just great people. And to see them succeed is just, it's going to be great, because I really feel like that we figured it out. Who knows? Time will tell. But like you said earlier, calculated risk.
Yeah, man. Well, that was one of the keys that I had always thought was important to growth of a company, was the successful, when you go to Diamond, you can say, hey, all of these have had a successful Kickstarter. They have all had this much. There's this many projected sales. Or their hardcovers their sales have already hit this number. So this is what we're projecting for another thing. I mean, like you said, calculated risk, but sounds pretty good to me.
I hope so, man. I'll definitely keep you up to date. And we're going to blog about our process just to let people, kind of taking that idea from Jim Zub, who, by the way, a little shout out to him. That guy was just inspirational to me to try to enter in, to write my own book and to even enter into the comics world. And, I highly recommend that to any new creator, is just to go to his Zubtails, and he really breaks it down. So I'm going to kind of follow his lead. So as we're going through this whole process, I want to document it and just let people know. And hopefully, if for some reason we don't get in or we make mistakes, a person who eventually in the future might want to do the same thing, can learn from them, so they don't have to make the same mistakes as we do.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I had Jim and Sean Isaacs, who draws backup for Thunderbolts, on the show in September. So he was hugely formative to me as well. All right, last question.
Sure.
A piece of advice you haven't given yet, and where we can find you online, and then we'll say goodbye.
Piece of advice. For all the writers out there, The Art of Comic Book Writing by Mark Neese, which is a textbook for the Savannah School of Art and Design, has been the Bible, and I've learned the Bible to me in my writing career, and I've learned so much. So you can purchase it on Amazon for about, $15, but a fantastic reference. And to find us is my regular comic, where I so wish I could make the announcement now, because we just got picked up by a pretty decent-sized publisher, and it's Solar Flare, and it's www.solarflarecomic.com. And we're also found on Facebook, where it's facebook.com/solarflarecomic. And then, of course, Jamestown Publishing at gmail.com or www.jamestownpublishing.com.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, no problem, Russell. Anytime. Again, love the show. I'm going to start catching up on a lot of the backlog that you have. Some great interviews I noticed. So I've been listening to them all weekend. So appreciate the advice and what you're doing, too.
So that was James Haick, Haick like cake, as he told me after the interview, founder of Jamestown Publishing and creator of Solar Flare. And I hope you enjoyed that one. I know that was a little bit odd, especially in the middle. It was mostly an interview with me. The sound quality was but honestly, that's because for about the first 30 to 40 minutes, I thought we were going to start recording. And then finally, we were 40 minutes into the podcast, and I was like, we're not going to start from scratch. We just covered all of this stuff. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got a lot of value of it. I know it's a little bit weird. I know it's a little bit different, but what can I say? This show is supposed to feel like two people sitting down and getting coffee and talking. And that's what it felt like to me. If you did like this show, go head on over and find Jamestown Publishing, and tell them how much you enjoyed the episode. And if you did like this episode, please head on over to thebusinessofart.us/iTunes to rate, review, and subscribe today. It's the best way to make sure you don't miss any of our other awesome content. Thanks a lot, wannabes and creators. I will see you next time.